record on this computer, and then we're going to share our screen. I will make this a little bigger for all of us. But here we are. Here's the our first web app. I'll go ahead and close my console. As you can see, we have JS, we have CSS, and we have HTML. So when I started to build this out, the first thing that I started with was my HTML. I knew that based on the picture that they provided, that there was going to be like this black box around my text, and that there was going to be a timer value that I was going to update. And then I added this on my own. This is not really important. So this is what I came up with, right? I gave them both IDs because I knew based on the directions that I was probably gonna like only have one piece of text, right? There weren't several pieces of text that I was going to have to look through or check on. There was only one piece of text. And then just writing it out, I saw, okay, I really only have one div. I only have one wrapper. So I might as well just put an ID on that as opposed to a class. If I had had multiple of these like boxes or something like that, maybe I would change this to a class, but instead I have one box, one timer value. And so I gave them both IDs. I chose a span here. Technically, you could do really like a paragraph or a header or anything like that. I chose a span just because in my mind, I was thinking like, okay, well, if I think about what this thing actually is, it isn't the title of anything. You know, it's not like a heading or explaining like the title of what other articles are. It isn't a group of text of like several ideas in one block. It's really just like one thing. So that's why I chose a span. So then I moved over to my CSS, and what I did was I used the hash symbol here for both timer wrapper and timer value. I knew that based on the prompt that we wanted this like a black background. We wanted a certain amount of height here, and we wanted, let me bring this over here. And we wanted a certain amount of like, I don't know. It says that you can go all the way to the end of the page. So maybe I could just say like, I don't know, take off the width there and it'll go to the end of the page. I also added this thing called padding, which padding is like the distance between the border of whatever your element is and all of its content. Like, so like it's the distance between, it's like a certain amount of spacing that you can put between the outer border of your element here and then anything else inside. So if I come in here and I take this away, it'll go right up to the top left, right? But if I add the padding, I can add padding for the top and padding for the left and right. I can move it over, I can move it up and down. Then I came to timer value, and I wanted the font size to be 40 pixels. I chose this thing called font family. I tried to match this. I just went through, I Googled a bunch of font families that are available in CSS, and I chose Arial. And then another thing I like to do is I like to go to, if you Google color picker, it will, there's like different web apps where you can just toggle around on different color wheel and find the like code for it. So I could have come in here and said gray. That's probably closer to the color I want, but also I can go here. Let's new tab color picker. I can come here and like just move it around and then grab this guy and then paste it into my code. And it's a little bit more specific. I can get like colors that I don't know the exact name of. Cool. And so that gave me most of my styling. And then I came over here for my my JavaScript. And as you all probably read, there is a function called getElementById, where I can go and I can find one of these elements by their ID. And what I did was I like to segment things into very little chunks. To me, it makes it easier to like break the code up and understand what each piece is doing. So I said, I want a function. I want a chunk of code that does something that I can point to it and tell it to go. And I want to pass in a value. And all this function will do is update the value on this span element, right? So I defined that. And then once I did that, it's out of the way. I don't have to worry about how I'm going to do that again. I don't have to worry about writing that code or managing it. It's all up here in my function. Then what I did is I created two variables. One called, I guess you could call this time remaining. I got lazy and just called it time. And I started it out as 10. And then I wanted to keep track of whether or not we have reached 0. Because when we reach 0, we want to, instead of like changing this time remaining, we want to just permanently switch over to this liftoff message. So I wanted to just like keep track of when we've hit 0 and when we've switched over to this. So then, as you all probably read as well, there's this thing called set interval, which will, you can put in a function here and it will call it at a certain like interval. So now it calls this function every second. And what I wanted to do was first I ran an if-else statement, if statement, else statement, to say if time is greater than 0. So if time is 1 or above, whatever the current value of time is, pass that into my function that's going to update the value over here. Then update the value of time. Make time equal to whatever time currently is minus 1. So if time is greater than 0, I'm going to just keep doing that every second. Update time on the actual HTML, update the HTML element, and then update the value of this variable time. Subtract 1 and update it. Then if we get to 0, we want to switch over to 0. We want to switch over to this liftoff thing, right? So what I did was I just said, okay, so like even if time is greater than 0, we have this business that we can do. But if it's less than 0, or if it's 0 or less, I want to say the first time that it hits 0, I want to say, okay, flag this 0 reached as true. So when it hits 0, I want to update this element to have this text, and then I want to flag this 0 reached equal to true. I want to change the value from false to true, so that now any subsequent runs, time will be 0, right? Time has gone through this check lots of times to the point where it is no longer greater than 0. And then when it hits this check, 0 reached is true. So I'm using a not operator, right? Remember, this will take whatever the Boolean value of this variable is and flip it to its opposite. So if it's false, it will flip it to true and then we're checking else if true, do this. So if we have 0 and this thing is false, execute this code. So we set it to true, and then anytime we come in here afterwards, this will be true. We use this not operator to flip it to false. So else if false, that doesn't check out, so it'll skip over. So by using these two, I can ensure that when time is 0 and when 0 reached is true, none of this stuff is going to get run. It'll just keep going over these two checks over and over and over again, and I don't have to worry about it at all. So the result, once I put everything back, is 10, 9, 8, 7, right? And it'll go all the way down to 1, and then it'll change to liftoff. Any questions there? Just on like the basic way that I went about it?
Not so much. It did tell us to do certain fonts and stuff, though, for our example, the sans serif or something.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
To be honest, I like to skip over that and see if I can match them just using like Google and stuff. I don't know. That's fun for me.
Yeah. That's where I got my color from.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, color pickers are great. Then I'll show you all one more thing. We have, let's refresh this here. Why are you not refreshing? Refresher. Oh, it's because I got to take this off. So I also utilized this HTML element called a button. A button receives clicks, and then you can hook them up in your JavaScript, and you can make them do stuff. I set up a function here, and I said document get element by ID, refresher, right? I have an ID over here that says refresher. Actually, I don't need this on click, I guess. And then I say, okay, get that element, and on click, whenever that element is clicked, do this. And so I said, okay, when that element's clicked, set time equal to 10, set 0 reached equal to false. So I reset my two variables up here, and we start to count down again. So just a little bit of fun, fun stuff to have there. Buttons are really, really fun. All right, any final questions on the code pen challenge here, the countdown clock challenge?
I do have a question. Am I going to be able to review this stuff by like Friday when I get a little more time?
Yeah, so
is my class done? I don't get access to all that stuff.
Yeah, so you should have access to all of the workshops that we've been working on. And I'm recording this review for this workshop right now. So I'll post that up to the Slack. So in case like you wanted to see it once again, how I did this, you can see it there. But as far as like the workshops go, and I'm pretty sure your access to Slack will stay around for a good bit. But yeah, as far as the workshops go, you should have access to those for a while.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Got another question here.
Have a good
night. Sure, you as well. I'm sticking around for like 15 more minutes if you want to hang out, but yeah, cool. Can you share more code? Can you share all the codes you wrote in HTML? Yeah, what I can do, I'll stop